entrepreneurs get portrayed two different ways: heroic, oh, you're risk taker, this, that, the other, or you're bad, you're screwing everybody, whatever, right? And the
You're a
truth
capitalist.
yeah, and the truth is, both are probably true at different points, right? So entrepreneurs are people, right? And they're just trying to figure out, how to get more freedom of time, money, relationships, and purpose.
Welcome to the Break Free Podcast with your host, David Mancilla. Today we have with us Steven Neuner. Steven, how are you, brother?
Better than I deserve. How are you?
I'm fantastic. Feeling blessed that finally get the chance to be in this podcast with you. I know you have a lot to share, and I thank you on behalf of our audience. I know that your heart and your brain has gone through a lot to be where you are and the success that you had. And this is what this podcast is about, to discover those breakthroughs and those hard times that made you who you are right now. So thank you.
Well, thank you for having me, and I'm grateful to be a part of the conversation.
Fantastic. So let's start with full name, where you're from, and what do you do for a living?
Full name is Steven Joseph Neuner. I currently live in Dallas, Texas. I'm sort of from a lot of different places, but if you spend enough time in Texas, you get to claim it. So I'm officially Texan now. I've been here since probably about high school, and I'm an entrepreneur, and I specialize in the areas of insurance, teamwork, and unique ability teamwork.
Unique ability teamwork. Can you expand a little bit on that? What is unique ability all about?
Yeah, well, so I mean, it's a strategic coach principle. I mean, for those who are unfamiliar with strategic coach, go check out Strategic Coach, Dan Sullivan. But essentially, there's teamwork, which I think we all sort of have a image in our mind of what teamwork is and what consists of teamwork, which is more than one people working together towards a cause. But unique ability teamwork is when the strengths and kind of the never-ending desire to get better and improve, and the ability to produce superior results and have fun doing it. That when you combine different sets of unique abilities together to accomplish something greater, that is unique ability teamwork.
Fantastic. So, have you ever been an entrepreneur, or you had a job before in your life?
I've probably didn't want to admit it, but I've always been an entrepreneur, even though I've had jobs. And so I've struggled in jobs multiple times. Because I think in my heart, I've always been an entrepreneur. So from the youngest age, I was the kid getting in trouble, selling things at school. We used to go to Sam's Club and buy all the blow pops, and then we'd sell them for $1 a piece, and then we'd get in trouble for that, and then we'd find some other thing we were doing. So sort of always a little something going on, if you know what I mean.
And it's funny that you say that, because when I was in high school, my dad purchased a restaurant, and he said, "You guys are my kids. You can always come here and eat for free." So what I did is they made these amazing sandwiches. They were like, 5 layers of meat, and they were incredible. So I had an idea. So I will order 1 sandwich for me, and then I will get another 4 sandwiches to go sell at the high school. And I sold them very expensive, and people loved them. And then my dad said, "You can eat whatever you want here, but you cannot take anything with you."
Dad figured out that you weren't growing enough to match the 4 sandwiches, huh?
Yes.
That's funny.
And that's how it starts, isn't it? Tell me, what did you go to university? What did you do with your life?
Yeah, so I mean, I certainly went to college. I had no intention of going. I was working like 3 jobs at the time. A lot of my friends, I grew up in an area where most everybody had a plan to go to college. I had a single parent father, and college wasn't talked about. So I just was working, and I actually was managing like a retail clothing store as an assistant manager. And one of my team members got into college. He was younger than me, and I helped him move into his dormitory. And when I helped him move into his dormitory, I fell in love with the idea of college in that amount of time. And I basically applied, got accepted, and came back and quit my job, moved down the next weekend to go to college.
That is amazing.
Yeah.
Wow. What
Shows
is
you
the
how high of standards the university had to accept me on that short notice.
what what's the time gap between high school and college then? Did you like waited some months or years?
Yeah, I mean, it was probably a little over a year of just sort of working and doing different things. And yeah, I mean, and so anyway, that college experience did not work out, but it got me started. So I joined a fraternity. I had way too much fun, and got into a little bit of trouble. And my grades were, I got a 0.0 because I was literally too lazy to go drop my classes. Really pretty pathetic. But I did get the bug there. And so I left college. I came back to Dallas, and I started going to junior college and working again. And I eventually got my grades up, and I transferred into University of North Texas, where I studied entrepreneurship, of all things.
That's wonderful.
Yeah. So I at least got the bug. It was and I got the college experience out of me. It only took me a semester to get that all out, and then onward and upward from there.
So you got the best of both worlds. You got to party hard for 6 months, and then you were serious. That's good.
Yeah, it was probably it's all it took, I guess.
You know how many people go through college, they party, and then they kind of finish college and they keep partying until their late 30s? There's people like that, right?
Yeah. And I had things going on in my life that was just not an option. So I worked my way through school. I worked my way through college, all that kind of stuff. And so, but yeah, it was enough. I have no regrets. It was other than I didn't drop the classes. That was pretty pathetic, but that was a lesson learned for me as well.
What did you do right after school? Did you get a job or you went right into business?
I went right in. Well, I had multiple businesses in college, and so
really
none of them super successful, but certainly lots of ways that I made money. We had a business where we were refurbishing laptop computers that did okay. And we would buy refurbished laptop computers and sell them to college students. And then we had a website that we started back when the websites were starting to get big. One of my friends was a professional handicapper. And so we bought a website called luckysportspicks.com. And so he would help them pick which sports teams to bet on. And it was a subscription model. And it was pretty poorly conceived because our promise was if you didn't win with us, you got another month for free. So
oh no.
yeah. But it was all learning experience, all good learning. And so I did that through college. Out of college, I knew that it wasn't the right business. And so none of those were going to be the type of business that I wanted to build long term. And so I took a job in sales for a huge company called ADP. It was like a payroll HR outsourcing company, and they have a fantastic sales program, training program. And I learned a ton, and I worked really, really hard and made more money than any 22-year-old should. And it didn't take me long, and I just didn't enjoy it. There was a lot of really fun things about it, but I knew that I was basically on a treadmill, and the longer I ran at it, I would get more trophies and I'd get a good amount of money, but I was always going to sort of be capped. They were always going to shrink the territory, change the commission structure. There's always some sort of thing that they were tweaking to get more out of their business, which I get. For me, though, I just knew that wasn't a long-term solution. So I got great training and took that forward.
I was going to say that one of my mentors, what he did is he actually went to work for Xerox just to get the sales training. He ended up staying there. He became a senior sales manager, but he says the training for sales made him a millionaire, right?
Yeah.
How was the training for you? Like, did they spend enough time training you?
Oh, it was an incredible training program. They were world class. Still are. We try to recruit from them now. I mean, honestly, they do a really great job of training, especially the hard parts that people don't want to do, and they do a good job of weeding people out. Are you willing to really, really go pound the pavement, knock down the doors, really, do the things that most people don't want to continue to do? Go through a lot of rejection. And so that was a really, really great, in learning tweaks that actually improved your results. Those are really great skills to build. It was great to learn how to sell consultatively, to sell a solution and not just what would otherwise be viewed as a commodity product. And so those were all skills that translated into really my first business on my own, completely on my own, which was our insurance brokerage.
That is fantastic. So you're using a similar sales process that you were taught.
Yeah, I was certainly far more evolved, but the basics of getting doors open and all those kind of fundamental skills that I learned along the way were super valuable. And especially when I started the business, because we started the guest bedroom of our home and I really didn't have any capabilities. It was really early on. It was just a whole lot of activity and begging for meetings and begging people to buy stuff because I really didn't have a whole lot to offer other than I'm going to do a good job for you. I'm going to work really hard for you. But we didn't really have a lot to offer. The activity that I learned to do, though, and continuously stay focused and refocused and pick myself back up and continue to fail forward allowed us to get enough progress with the business, though, that we were eventually able to move into that zone. We were starting to actually be able to improve our capabilities and actually solve real problems for our clients, which then made sales a lot easier. But just getting that initial kind of base layer, getting from zero to $100,000, $200,000 in revenue, that it was pure just hustle and grit and God's blessing on like a lot of hard work, honestly.
Definitely. And I wish I had a job like that. I was always a computer scientist. I'm naturally an extrovert, but I thought because of my upbringing in computer science and scientific methods that I thought I was an introvert. So I became an introvert. So I was always looking for jobs that taught me how to be a better architect, a better scientist, became a leader, but I never was taught how to sell. And when I started my own business, it was horrible. In fact, I was only in business because I was so good as what I did for the software development side and the discovery phase on the scientific method, that word of mouth got me employed. And later on is when I actually really had to realize how to network, how to do lead generation, how to actually, like you said, sell a solution, not just another software development company. Just in Toronto, there is 2,000 software companies, 2,000 of the companies that do what I do. And now, we're super successful, but it was so hard. Like, I wish I had intelligence to just go get a sales job for a multinational where I could actually learn the skills,
Yeah. Well, in hindsight, I mean, I didn't know at the time. It was certainly a gift. It was well worth the time I invested there.
For sure. And what got you into insurance? Why insurance? From payroll to insurance is a big difference.
Yeah, well, we probably don't have enough time in the podcast. I will try to keep it as short as I can. So I left the company that I was with, and I became a equal partner, but really the junior partner. I had two people that were much more experienced in business than me, and I became the energy and the muscle, the motive force in the partnership to try to help build this other company where we were basically outsourcing payroll, HR, insurance for companies, right? So it was like a brokerage model. We were going in and we were listening to the client and then trying to match them with a company that could serve their needs, right? So it wasn't that big of a jump. However, we had a lot of success with that business. It was going really well. 9/11 hit, though, and a lot of the companies we were working with, they weren't managing their insurance properly. And because of that, they started losing their insurance programs, which affected our clients that we had brought them, right? And so the clients said, hey, like, we really like the service, but we liked not having to deal with insurance anymore. Mm-hmm. So I tried to find insurance agents to refer the business to. And I don't mean this with any pride, ego, whatever, but I just didn't find any ones that I was really impressed with that I wanted to put in front of my clients. And so we did that. I finally found someone that I thought was really good. They did a good job. However, one of the clients came back to me a little bit later and said, hey, thank you for the referral, but I want to let you know he's actually trying to take the rest of your business. And so he was actually trying to undermine our client relationships. And so anyway, so that obviously wasn't going to work. Simultaneously, our business had really declined because of 9/11 and them losing their program. So we had gone from like 50 million in revenue to like 5 million, like really fast. We had an offer to buy the company before 9/11, and there was a really high multiple placed on the value of the business. And after 9/11, the business had changed so much, the valuations weren't near the same. And my two partners weren't really as committed to growing the business as I was. And so there was basically, long story short, I didn't have a buy sell. And I was in a situation with two partners where we weren't equally yoked. We did not have the same goals for the business. And so I left that business. Sadly, I left that business and I went back to dental school. I went back to school to become a dentist. And
no way.
I went
Another big jump.
Oh, you big jump, right? So I go through, all the pre-dental classes. I'm taking all the classes. I'm about to go to dental school, about to put my family in all this debt to become a dentist. And I'm volunteering in a dental office. And I essentially realized that I hate dentistry. And all I could think about is how do I get to 4 or 5 practices so that I don't have to practice dentistry anymore. So I was like, whoa, this isn't a good idea. If I'm about to go spend all this time and money to go become a dentist, and I don't want to be a dentist. So we prayed about it, talked to my wife, and we essentially said, hey, like, what kind of business can we start with no cash, no capital, right? Like what we have? I got sales skills. That's it. So we basically, I bought a list of a couple thousand businesses in Dallas, and I remembered the insurance thing and that I just couldn't find anyone. And so I started cold calling and banging for meetings and trying to sell insurance. And so little by little, that turned into a business. And so that's sort of how that all happened. It was pretty wild when I look back.
Incredible. So tell me what prompted you to become a dentist? What was in your mind? Like, why dentistry?
Yeah, I mean, honestly, David, what really was going on was I was sad and depressed. I'd spent years. This was the first real business I'd been a part of building, and to get in a position with the partners where we were all stuck in a stalemate and there was really no way out. Nobody wanted to sell. Nobody wanted to reinvest. They were much further along in their careers, right? So they were kind of wanting to coast a little. And I was still in my 20s. I was like, I need to build, we need to build. I haven't had any kind of big wins or anything like that. And so, so when I realized that I was stuck and there was no way out, no way to get bought out, it was a stalemate and I didn't have to buy, sell. So I had to just leave. I had to walk away from a business and a company that I had spent years pouring my heart into, right? And, and so I went through a little depression. I went through a little loss of confidence. And I think what dentistry was to me is a way to be entrepreneurial. And when I lacked confidence, I've just never heard of a dentist going out of business. And so I kind of think that it seemed like a safe way to move into entrepreneurship, if that makes sense.
Yeah. And I think you make the right choice, brother, because I actually know a couple of dentists that are friends of mine. One of them grew it to 12 practices and he made millions.
Yeah.
The other one went it to 5 and he sold it and he did okay too.
Yeah.
But they both loved dentistry. That's all they talk about.
You have to. And so back to the unique ability conversation, it was just not my unique ability. I had the grades, I had all the things, but in fact, one of my best friends to this day, he's an anesthesiologist now. We met in school. I would study 4 hours or 40 hours. He would study 4 hours and we'd get the same grade. Right. And so I just Midwest, upbringing, like I'm going to work, I may not be the smartest person, but I'll outwork them. Right. And so we'd compete on grades, but he would just get it, it's like 4 hours. And what's funny is I didn't realize it. And this is back probably to a better explanation of unique ability is just by example. He doesn't get business, but for me, I've always just sort of understood it, right? Like it doesn't take a massive amounts of effort for me to learn something new when it comes to business.
Incredible.
Right?
And
Unique
yeah,
ability.
and it's when you look back in life, those moments that seem to be the worst while you're going through them, they somehow get used to to get you to a place where you need to be, where it becomes the best thing that ever happened to you.
Yeah.
Have you realized that in life? Because I bet that's what you just told me, right? That's what got you into insurance, and you still have your insurance agency.
So we're blessed. We're able to build that, and then we eventually like partnered up with a bigger group, and then that even grew, and it's been just a really great blessing, which has now allowed me to be involved with other businesses, right? So that's where we have businesses around unique ability teamwork, right, and supporting companies with their teamwork.
That's fantastic.
It's been amazing, and the reason why that came from is candidly because the worst thing the thing that I struggled the most with building the insurance business was really getting the right people in the right seats and building that really great teamwork, and most of it was my fault, right? I just had no idea what I was doing. And so as I learned and got better there, then that eventually became like something we became really, really good at. So much so that now, like I said, we have two other businesses that I'm involved with that are entirely around teamwork.
That's amazing. So how long have you been doing insurance?
Let's see, about 16 years now, 15, 16 years.
Fantastic.
Yeah.
Wow. You made it.
Yeah.
Did you take any partners in that business, or is you're 100% owner?
I was, for the longest time, 100% owner. And because of the situation that I mentioned earlier with the partners, I used to walk around and I would say real proudly, the only ship that doesn't sail is a partnership. Mm-hmm. And I used to go around and say that all the time. And I thought I was really smart when I said it, and people would laugh at it. Oh, that's funny. Only ship that doesn't sail is a partnership. But what I would tell you is I started really, really being self-reflective. And what I realized was that the partnership wasn't all bad, right? There were good things about it, right? But because of the way it ended, I made it all bad. And so I missed some of the learning for it, but there were things that worked about it. So what I learned from that is it's about having the right partners, right? Mm-hmm. And so about 4 years ago, we ran into essentially an opportunity that like I just couldn't refuse. And so I do have partners now. We're part of a bigger organization called Assured Partners. And it's been a lot of fun, and it's the right kind of partnership, if that makes sense.
And now it's working out.
Oh yeah, when we've grown exponentially, right? And that wouldn't have been possible had I not finally dug a little deeper into that experience. The pain made me say, I don't want that ever again, right? But the truth is, I let a little bit of that pain blind me to really a lot of really good things that came along with it too. And so once you learn that, you say, okay, well, I don't want to repeat those things again, right? Mm-hmm. But how do we take all the good and learn from what didn't work, right?
Aside from your big, disaster with your first partnership business, what has been one of the most horrible situations in your insurance life, and how do you overcome it?
Horrible situations.
Worst problem ever.
I think that most of our worst problems were really tied to me. So I was my worst problem. I mean, there was lots of things, right? We've been through economic ups and downs. We've been through COVID. We've been through Affordable Care Act, Obamacare, government regulations that completely changed our business, completely changed our revenue model. in such a way that, my wife and I, thankfully, were debt free. We went a whole year with no personal income just so we could keep our business afloat and keep our team afloat. Not because we did anything wrong, but because there was a government level change that changed the way that our business was financially received revenues, right? Mm-hmm. And so I can tell you all kinds of really incredible stories of perseverance of the team and how hard that was and everything else. And going through that a couple of times, I could tell you about all that. What I would tell you though is the most difficult thing I dealt and have dealt and probably still deal with today, although it's gotten a lot better in the business, is the person that I shave or don't shave with in the mirror every day. And I got to tell you, we would have been a lot bigger, a lot faster, but for my own, limitations, especially in the areas of personal confidence. Early on, I lacked confidence, and so I'd often settle for good, not great. Mm-hmm. And so we built a good business and not a great business. And so as I started to realize that was a pattern, right, and then it had been a long-term pattern, almost back to being a kid. And I started doing the work on that, and I started leaning in and living into bigger opportunities and started normalizing the great instead of normalizing okay or good enough. It really, really changed the business. And so I would say that because it was me and not some external force, that to me was the biggest challenge that I can think of off the top of my head ever dealing with the business.
It's funny that you mentioned that because I went through this exactly the same thing. And, there was one day when I said, I am tired of playing small. And the thing is that survival, the fear of failing, it gets so strong in you. And people think, oh, you guys are entrepreneurs, you are amazing, you are like risk takers. I'm like, for the contrary. I actually created my own business in part because 3 of the businesses I used to work for got reduced in half, and they were multinational corporations where I thought I would never get fired. And thank God I got never fired, but I was so scared when I realized if I have my own business, I'm going to have at least 2 people that pay the bills, not only one, right? Yeah. So I'm like, no, I went into business to diversify my risk, not to actually be more risk, prone to have more risk. But that made me play so small for so long. And don't get me wrong, that made me successful too, because I was very frugal with spending, very afraid of growth. Then I didn't care anymore, and I went the other way, and I grew exponentially in 2 years, and then I went almost bankrupt because I did it for the wrong reasons. Oh my God, I don't even have time to tell you my whole story, but is that I will never play small again in my life. Because as I grow older, I realize we only have so many days in this world. Same. And I rather fail and learn a ton from my failure trying to play big than stay small and build a castle around me so that I'm considering not suffering, because the suffering comes from the fear. Fear is what gives you the suffering. You try to protect yourself from suffering, and when you do that, you're actually suffering because that's called fear.
Yeah. Well, and the thing is too, is I think it's important, and that's why I agreed to come on here, but I think it's important, the conversations that we're having, because what I would say is I think that entrepreneurs get portrayed 2 different ways: heroic, oh, you're risk taker, this, that, the other, or you're bad, you're screwing everybody, whatever, right? And the truth,
you're a capitalist.
And the truth is, both are probably true at different points, right? So entrepreneurs are people, right? And they're just trying to figure out, how to get more freedom of time, money, relationships, and purpose. As our good friend Dan says. So Dan Sullivan says. So I just think that those though can play serious head games on people, and it's really important that who you surround yourself with, because I didn't have an entrepreneurial community for a long time. I always have seen myself as a servant to entrepreneurs, and I still do. I now realize I'm also an entrepreneur. So note that before I was a entrepreneur who didn't know he's an entrepreneur. I just saw myself as a servant of entrepreneurs. Now I recognize that I'm both, right? And because I now surround myself with other entrepreneurs, I can tell when I'm under indexing. I hang out with people that will push me, they challenge me, just the way that they live, right? Just the way that they live. They didn't have to say anything to me. I'm like, wow, I'm inspired. I want to do that too. Not that exact thing, but I want to take that risk in my life. However, when I was playing small, like you said, for me, I didn't have that community. And so the fact that I was just an entrepreneur at all looked really, really risky. And so I was able to sort of hide out because comparatively to my friend group, who are still my friends, but they just weren't entrepreneurs. And so they were like, wow, you're such a risk taker. The truth is I was able to hide out in that. And the more I got to hang out with other entrepreneurs and I was, like I said, inspired. I was like, wow, okay, I'm playing small.
Mm-hmm. You touch a great point. That's why they say we are the average of the 5 people we hang out with the most, right? Yep. And exactly the same thing happened to me. Like I was surrounded by, friends and family. I actually had, my brother is an excellent entrepreneur. So I actually had his leadership for a long time.
That's great.
But other than that, never mingled with other business owners. And so that I always thought I was the hero. And now, now that I actually grew and got into different, like strategic coach, and I went through Vistage, I went through Tony Robbins, and I see all these guys making like, 200 million, 300 million, $1 billion business. I'm like, oh my God, what was I doing all this time?
Well, and for me, like the revenue and all that's really cool, but like the thing that really, really helped me realize, and this goes back to the stories that get thrown around entrepreneurship, is the 200 million guy gets viewed at that level. Like when you're just helping people and you got a small business, you're a hero. When you really, really have a $200 million company, you're rich, whatever, But the truth is, the more I've got to know the $200 million company guys, they're making massive impact. They're solving tons of problems. They're creating massive jobs. They're elevating people's careers. They're generally very, very generous. They give in their community. And it's so not like what I probably, even though I would have told you I didn't believe any of that stuff anyway, like now I really know it's true. Like most people, there's jerks, but there's poor jerks and rich jerks, But most of the time to get to that level of success, you are helping a whole heck of a lot of people.
And you know what? You touch a great point. You're right. And actually, the more net worth they generate, the more generous they become. And you know why people don't know about it? Because they tend to do it anonymously. Like they don't want people to know that they are helping because it's not for their ego. It's to actually truly help.
Right.
And that's inspiring. To me, it's like the most amazing thing that they can ever do. And they honestly, they don't really care.
Yeah.
Because they know in their heart they're getting fulfilled by giving. By the way, the only way to get fulfilled is by giving.
Yeah.
It's nice to receive, but if you want to have a beautiful spiritual experience, start giving unconditionally. Yeah. Start helping somebody without even that somebody knowing that it's you. That will get you to another level of happiness for sure.
Yeah. And not everything's always monetarily too. There's a lot of ways to give, right? It could be giving forgiveness to someone. It could be, there's a lot of ways to be generous,
Or your time, right? For me, actually, I find it more expensive to give my time than to give money.
For sure. Yes.
You mentioned that you and your wife couldn't have an income for a year. Does your wife work with you then?
Yeah. So she was when I went through the journey of the dentist and the business before, she was a school teacher. And so when we decided that dentistry was not to pursue, wasn't meant for me, it was not my unique ability. We decided to start the business. She was my investor. And what I mean by that is she earned an income, school teacher, and we lived off that income. And so we just made it work. We didn't have a lot, but we lived on love, and we have some great memories of, 50-cent movie nights at the Dollar Theater on Tuesdays, and, the dollar ice cream at Dairy Queen or whatever. So we got all these great memories from it. we just made it work though. And we grew the business enough to where she was having to help nights and weekends. And like, we were just, it was me. Right.
Mm-hmm.
And we tried to hire somebody. And so what happened was all the candidates that were applying for the position were young females. And we lived in we were still officing at a house, and it was like 1,400 square foot house. And so the idea of young, attractive women and me sharing a little bedroom together, working in the office, just didn't seem wise. And so, not that I'm such a catch, but it just didn't seem wise. And so
I bet that came from your wife.
And so she temporarily left teaching and essentially did every role in the business long enough to train someone else to do it and hand it off as we continue to grow. So in like the EOS world, she was my integrator. I was the visionary.
That's wonderful.
And so we worked together. We had this beautiful partnership, and we started other businesses and stuff like that together too. And when I felt led into partnering with Assured Partners, we were able to actually, we'd had 3 kids over that period of time. We had 3 small young children. They're getting older now, but she wanted to not be stay at home, but she wanted to be at home more with the kids. And so when we ended up partnering with Assured Partners and we started really growing, I was able to grow the leadership team and get her out of the business. And so she now has a small business that we teach our kids entrepreneurship with. It's a Cobra administration company. It's really great. She's got freedom. We're teaching our kids, and she's able to be with our kids, take them to school, pick them up, take them all the places, they get real busy. So
that's fantastic.
Yeah, it's been great.
What's the secret? Because this is something that I get asked a lot, because my wife was so important in my business life. At some point, exactly what you said. But from your perspective, what's the secret of sharing a company with your significant other? Because it's not easy. Some people actually get divorced by doing that.
Yeah.
Right?
So, I tell people ask me too, right? Because they see our relationship. They see we're not perfect, but we have a great, we're 18 years and we're still best friends. We love each other. We have fun, right? The thing when people ask me that, it's like, I've never seen it either works horribly or wonderfully. I've never seen it go, meh. It's rarely lukewarm, right? And so there's certain dynamics that like I don't know the answer to it, but what I can tell you for us, the things that really allowed, like it was good in the beginning, but allowed it to really go to great is really I'm beating this horse here, but it's this understanding of unique ability, and that my gifts don't make me any more important than her in the business, or vice versa. But when we could start really like understanding like what we're uniquely gifted at, where we have that passion, that energy, that drive for never ending improvement, that unique ability, when she understood mine and I understood hers, and we could actually respect and value each other for our unique contributions. And we sort of knew where our side of the line was, to where like, I can coach her, I can give her feedback, but really that's her part of the business to own. And this part was mine. And so the more we sort of understood that, it really, really increased our appreciation for each other. It increased our teamwork. It strengthened our relationship even outside the office. And then eventually the company grew so much, we eventually got to the point where it didn't feel like we were working for the same company, because the business had grown so much. We would almost never be together. It was like almost we had to have like dates. We always kept date nights, right? Those are a couple other things I'll mention in a second, but we had to have like date days to like just catch up on the business stuff, right? But that would be the only other thing I would say is like, if you're going to work together with your spouse, for me, what we found is like, you've got to fight for your relationship, right? Because it's so easy to let work creep into the marriage. And so we had to have very intentional date nights. We are not going to talk about work. We're going to, once a quarter, we would take like an overnight getaway, like at a minimum 3-day weekend. Even if we didn't have the money, we just go like across town from Dallas to Fort Worth, right? Like, how do we just go away from the kids and just be together, do something new, shake it up, and just constantly date each other, which is probably good for any marriage, right? That's probably good advice for any marriage. But if you're working together, you have to fight for it more, because just because you had lunch together at the office, that's not the same, right? It's not the same. So you got to make that investment, I guess, is what the other thing that I'd add.
For sure. What started happening with us when she came to the business was that we kept talking about business at dinner with the kids. We will go to bed and still talk about the business.
Yeah.
And one day she woke up and she said, from now on, we leave the business at the door and nobody's allowed to talk about business here.
Yeah.
And actually, we still respect that rule because I am so fortunate. My kids grew up, and I have 3 kids too, but now they're grown adults, and 2 of them work with us.
Oh, cool.
And but back then they were still living at the house, so we will all be talking about the business,
Yeah.
So she has this rule, and sometimes I am tempted when we're having a barbecue on Saturday, and like, hey, Jonathan, what's going on with this project? And she's like, I'm watching you. But actually, that actually helped a lot because
That's great.
Otherwise, the business becomes your entire life, right?
It does. It does. And like at the end of it, like seriously, I mean, it matters, but it doesn't matter, right? Like it doesn't matter like those relationships. And, you can't find anything that's probably harder to avoid conversations about than insurance. We'd literally be on a date. We're not going to talk about work. And then we'd see like a car on the road, like a red Toyota Camry. And she'd be like, did you hear about that claim or whatever, like on the auto? I'm like, oh my God, like, and you didn't even know how you got it. Like we'd be into it. And like, how did we even start talking about this? Oh, we saw a red Toyota Camry that led to this conversation.
Fantastic. One last question. I'm very appreciative of your time, so I don't want to make this too long.
Likewise. It's been wonderful. Thank you.
If you had access to a billboard in the busiest highway on earth, what would you write in it?
For me, it's the greatest story ever told, right? I mean, like, Christ is Lord, and thanks to His sacrifice, we can have a relationship with our Heavenly Father. That's probably on a lot of billboards, but boy, if I could have the busiest one in the world, I just can't think of anything more important.
So you think your faith has gotten you where you are right now?
Look, I don't know that my faith has gotten me where I am, right? I feel like hard work and living by certain principles that I think are that transcend even faith, that I think that like a lot of people can have success whether or not they have faith. But what I would tell you is, having had what a number of people would consider success, it is my faith that makes me feel rich, not the financial success, not the number of employees, not the even the trips or anything else. It is the richness of a relationship that has grown. And entrepreneur certainly has caused me multiple times. So you can call me weak, but to get on my knees and pray very specific, dedicated prayers, but I would just say, I think that a lot of people can have success without faith. For me, it has certainly enriched the journey, right?
I really want to thank you for being so honest. Most people wouldn't dare talk about their faith in a podcast. And to answer a question that I just asked you, for me, without my faith, I wouldn't be here. And I talk with my wife. We're Christians too. And I talk with my wife and I tell her, how the hell does all these people become so successful without faith?
Yeah. And
it's crazy. And like every problem that I had, it's like, please tell me what to do. I have no idea what I'm doing. I'm lost. What do you want me to do? Want to go back to get a job? Do you want me to what? I have no idea. What's the next step? And sure enough, the door opens and I go through and I become a better person through the problem, right?
Yeah. And I mean, the only reason that I see it and I hear what you're saying, and I could certainly easily jump there. I just know so many people that don't have faith, that are wonderful people that have had success. And I the only thing I can chalk that up to is that it's the laws of gravity apply to everything. Everybody, God's laws apply to everybody, whether we know that we're beneficiaries of His grace or not. We're all born on third base, especially if you live in Western, the Western part of the world. But it's not mutually exclusive. But like I said, for me, the thing that makes it rich is not the stuff that people would say, oh, someone's rich, right? It is absolute the faith that has certainly informed my journey and has enriched it beyond measure, and hopefully made it more impactful on the way.
For sure. What I can tell you after talking with so many entrepreneurs in my life and so many admirable people, we have one thing in common, and that's unconditional love. And if you are an entrepreneur and you are doing good for the world and you are blessing others, brother, it's your heart is filled with love, regardless of what you believe in. And that's the common denominator. And I've seen it over and over again.
Yeah.
Like you said, there is always a couple of jerks that makes us entrepreneurs look like really bad. Like people that exploit other people and stuff like that, or we're ruining the environment, and it's completely the contrary. But those guys that are actually successful and maybe multimillionaires, even with a huge heart, they have unconditional love inside. And I think that's the common denominator for sure.
Yep. Fascinating conversation, one which is certainly above my pay grade. We probably wandered into it today, but that's what I put on the billboard though, because for me, it's just like you said, I don't know how people do without it, but I know people do.
Fabulous. Brother, thank you so much for your time. If people want to get in touch with you, if they want to find out about your businesses, where can they go?
I think the easiest is StevenJNeuner.com, and that's Neuner, Steven with a V. That's probably the mothership, or LinkedIn. Those are the easiest ways to sort of learn more, because connected to a couple of different things. So depending what sparked their interest, they'll know how to get a hold of me there.
Fantastic. Thank you so much for your life contribution. Keep knocking it out of the park, and please come back whenever you want. This is your podcast. Thank you for being here, brother.
Thank you, David. Thanks so much, man. It was a blessing to get to spend the time together, and I'm looking forward to seeing you at our next coach session.
For sure. Blessings.
Love, buddy.
Bye.
That's all for today's episode of the Break Free Podcast. Head on over to iTunes and subscribe to the show. Starting your own business can be tough, but it doesn't have to be. Visit davidmansilla.com to pick up a copy of the #1 international best-selling book, Breaking Out of Corporate Jail. Expand what you consider to be possible and reach your full potential. And join us on the next episode.